Nice, nice.
Good
Hi, Derek.
morning. How
Wow.
are
I mean,
you?
like, did you get the memo to wear orange? Was that a,
Uh, honestly, I haven't worn this shirt in a long time, which is funny because I was like, I need to put a polo on since we're doing this via Zoom this time.
yes.
Professional up top, definitely have shorts on below.
And I like your background. So we got online this morning and we were like, wow, like we are way in sync this morning already. So it was really kind of good. So love your background.
It looks like you're sitting on a balcony.
Yes, this is the view from one of my listings on Longboat Key.
I
So
love it.
I try to claim that I was really there, but these people in the background won't move the entire time, so that would be a little odd. But yeah, I figured I'd shameless plug my listing.
This is where we edit the video. We put in some ocean in the background, so we it sounds like
Some
yeah.
moving water, some sound. It's good. Well,
With the AI, we can make that happen for sure, I'm sure.
we didn't introduce ourselves. I'm Shana Hamel,
Derek, Patty,
both
both
with
of
go ahead.
us with NextHome Excellence.
NextHome
So
Excellence, and we're here to do your monthly market report. Actually, we're right on time. These just got released earlier this week. Uh,
yes,
so exciting things happening for September 2025. Um, so always we get the statistics. I know we're in October and kind of fitting. We're wearing orange for Halloween. It's a couple days
no
away.
kidding.
So, and for those of you watching, we're kind of today is actually the Fed cut day. At 2 p.m. right now, we're being told there will be a decision, but the general consensus is that they will be making some kind of cut to the rates, which will be interesting to watch. So by the time you get this video, you will have that information and that answer, and we're only speculating. Do you got any big speculations for that, Derek?
I'm anticipating it's going to happen. I'm assuming probably a quarter point. It feels like it. I mean, the markets over the last day or so have basically moved. It's assuming it's going to happen. Um, what's interesting though, I mean, and I think we saw it last time, a month ago or whatever it was when they did drop it in September. The lead up to it, the rates fell and then they kind
Yeah,
of ticked up right afterwards. So
we'll
it'd be
see.
interesting to see if that happens. I mean, the rates have kind of stabilized, like and tweaked down a little bit. So we're at like the low sixes, at least average wise on some of the services I look at on a regular basis. But it'll be interesting to see if it jumps again. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean rates are going to fall off mortgages, but they tend to kind of follow a little bit. I think it's more beneficial for the sake of the consumer sentiment that things are moving in the right direction in that regard. And maybe just kind of get some people off the fence, ready to start their search again. Maybe they put it on pause for a while. But there's opportunities out there. And again, as we go over through the stats, like rates gonna trickling down the right direction. You've got, inventory falling, but you also have prices falling in some categories here. So new construction, there's incentives left and right. If you're trying to go with the new build, like there's a lot of things going on that if you are a buyer, you might want to make a move before you decide, you start seeing things kind of go the other direction. Not saying that's happening tomorrow, not saying it's happening today, but as we as the good news continues to come, I think things will kind of change and you'll start seeing the market move the other direction, and then you're going to feel like you missed the boat, on all the things that are kind of, I think, available right now.
We're seeing that in some price stabilization. So when you look at the stats, there has been some price stabilization in our market a little bit and some sales stabilization. So we're
Mm.
starting to see some trends with the inventory too dropping. So it's interesting to see over the past couple of months the inventory start to lower. Now I'm kind of glad it's going down a little bit before we see a little bit of an increase come season. Uh,
Yep.
historically, January, we shoot back up because everybody puts their homes back on the market. So I'm not surprised to see the dip. I hope we continue to see a dip in inventory because that shifts our supply and demand, of course, meaning that, the less supply we have, the more demand it may create. And that'll help to stabilize or maybe even raise prices a little bit. So I'm curious to see what happens between now and the end of the year. Hopefully
Yeah.
continue to dip to make room for whatever new inventory will be coming in as clockwork in January. And how that affects our pricing and really interesting. I know you're kind of for this conversation we talked about you focusing a little bit on the single family home world and me talking about the condo world a little bit because they are essentially two different atmospheres right now that in the local area here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so tell me
I,
about what's going on in the single family home world, and we'll talk about how it matches up with the condo world.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if it makes sense to try to show the graphs at the same time as we chat about them, just to kind of get a visual for some. I mean, is that a, you want to
So,
try that?
um,
It's up to you. Just throwing it out there. Regardless, the,
are
I
we
mean,
gonna? So, what are you? Did you want to like? Because I see it come up. Can we both share a graph? Is that what you're saying?
I could share, I think I could share my screen first and then, it would allow me to select my
Mhm.
screen and then obviously I would turn it off and then if you wanted to share yours, you could do that as well. Something like that.
I think we might get confusing that way. We can try it. I've never done multiple. I've done one screen share, but I've never
Let's
shared.
do it. So you can see all the graphs, correct?
I can.
Okay. So Sarasota County, let's start there. I mean, this is interesting because you do have basically three, metrics on your active inventory, closed sales, median sale price, all kind of trending in the same direction. Everything's kind of going down to some degree. You see the spike here of the price back in June, from June to July went up, and it went up again in August, and it shot back down below where we were in June for pricing. So why is that? I couldn't tell you the name, the reason for that, but it's obviously a median price point. Inventory has essentially gone down for the last 6 months. We talked a little bit in the last month stats, seeing that trend kind of taking place. It might be, end of season, people taking their house off the market, or it's selling, or as they expire because they didn't sell and they're taking it off market and they're like, we're not going to list it for the fall, which tends to be a little bit slower. Who knows? But that's a good thing. We did have a lot of inventory, but it kind of built up over the beginning of the year, and we saw that it's, that has been trickling down, which is good. Like you said before, supply and demand, does that eventually kind of help pricing? Well, as of now, it hasn't. It's shot for a minute and then came back down. So,
And I don't know. So, the mathematician scientist in me says, I look at that spike and it just makes me want to dig into those numbers. And I know we don't have time to do that, but to really question how we look at that because it could just be a lot of higher end units sold more than lower
mhm.
end units. And that could just be where the market was over those couple of months. So it's hard for me to see that spike because it does look like, compared to the rest of the trends on the graph, such an anomaly that I would want to really dig into those numbers to figure out, what caused that median price to go up that high, and is it really an accurate representation of the whole? I mean, because when we're looking at
Yeah,
median prices, it's hard, to kind of see that price drop or price
I,
hike there. And it's not really big if you look at
correct,
the scale on the right. And so it looks big on the graph, but
correct.
we're talking about $20,000 difference. So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I mean, from June of like it was like 457 and it jumped to like, 473. up to 475 and then drop back down to 450. So it's not like it's a gigantic swing, but it's still it looks bad on the graph. I think it looks worse on the
First,
graph than it is.
yeah, yeah.
But I think the bigger one is really the inventory is kind of
That's,
continuing to trickle down. So that's
and that's a
an easy
steady
trend.
trend. So I mean,
Yeah.
that's been consistent and could be that we're
But
selling more, could be that we're taking homes off the market because because it's a slower season. Could be a lot of things, but it's good news across the board to see that number go down instead of up
for
here.
sure. I mean, well, in that scale again is like a little over 4,400 back in April, and now we're at 31 and change.
And then
So,
same trend here, I'm seeing in inventory in Manatee County. So like it's still a downward
mhm.
trend.
Yep. So it's consistent over the county. Again, that scale over there on the price, that one's a little bit more, that's similar though. June to July it jumped and it kind of came down a little bit in August and kind of went back up in September. So I mean I think the closed sales it's kind of trended down. You've got the inventory trending down. So, you know, those are kind of going in parallel or in unison, I guess is the best word. Um, and then you have, the other interesting thing, in terms of the sales for Sarasota County, Manatee County is really looking at time to contract obviously has gone up. Things have been slower. They're taking longer to get to contract. I think overall, based on conversation I'm having with other agents in different networking groups and masterminds, things like that. I mean, the showings they're not happening regularly. Open houses are sometimes working, sometimes not. You're not seeing the traffic you'd like at every open house. But I mean, when the time comes and you have buyers to the door, you just want it to be presented as best as possible. But I mean, we are seeing that it's taking longer to contract. So, the patience needs to be there from the get-go. Again, we've kind of stressed that the last couple months we've done this. The expectations just have to be there that things are taking longer and buyers have time to look at whatever they want to look at. And when they're ready, they will pull the trigger. Um,
So I
so
think a little bit of a different trend in the condo market a little bit because I've really seen an uptick. I mean,
yeah,
it's there. I'm getting a taste that things are shifting because on at least, I mean, I have two showings on one of my condos just today, and last week I had like some ridiculous number of showings. So, do you want me to pull up the condos?
you can if you want. Yeah, if you're ready to pull those up, go for it.
I'll share
But the
that.
condos are definitely, like you said, they are another animal.
They are. And you see some of the similar trends, of course, So if you look at Sarasota, Manatee County, you are seeing let me move my bar out of the way. There we go. You are seeing some of the same things in inventory. Closed sales is down also, and it upticked a little bit in Manatee County, but for the most part, those two are down.
Down.
And
Yeah.
we saw some similar like weird peaks in the pricing. Um, it suggests that Sarasota County condo prices went up. I mean, like they were down in July and August. So I do think we're seeing a little bit of an uptick in the condo world in activity in just in general, at least what I'm experiencing on my listings. But if it was just one listing, I would isolate it. But I'm actually getting increased showings on at least three of my condo listings. So I think that that's telling me that there's some interest coming and we're starting to see the trucks, Derek, delivering cars here. So I mean, we are getting some people that are going to start to trickle in, especially after Halloween. I mean, that's
For
typically
sure.
what we say, but I've seen an awful lot of car delivery trucks here in the last week or so. So I think we're getting closer to a time where the cold is settling in up north and people have their hearts set on coming and enjoying what's behind us, right? You
Well,
you have
the
CST
interest.
behind you, right?
Yeah, well, this is siesta. Yeah, this is a beautiful sunset one random, night we were there. The skies are fantastic. I love even at my house, I just go outside and take pictures of the sky because they're crazy every night. But I think the interesting thing with condos is because the pricing has gone down, over the last, year, it's been tough for like a year and a half
It
at
has.
this point. Um, but you've seen a downward trend in condos. The desirability for some reason has gone down, obviously, with a lot of the assessments and things that they've had to go through and fees going up, things like which are all understandable. But I mean, you are getting to a point where like the price points on condos are attractive, based on where they were a couple of years back prior to that.
Right.
So it will be very interesting to watch. Do we see the prices start to tick back up at all? And people start scooping those up. I mean, I think for the most part, the assessments and the changes in the condo fees and things like that are kind of for the most part done. So,
Yeah,
those
for the
fees you
most part.
see,
I think we'll see some other changes in some of the complexes, still I still think the barrier islands are looking at some continuous changes over time. But for the most part, I think it's stabilized. And adding some of those insurance carriers here, I
yeah,
still think the carrying cost is a little high. There's a lot of, talk about what's going to happen with property taxes, and we talked about that at our meeting yesterday. And what property taxes on a homesteaded property, if it gets, approved to waive those completely, what that might do for our market going forward. So, and what kind of demand that would create, especially in like a condo market where that would, really reduce the carrying cost of those
sure.
condos if they were, primary residences or declared the primary residence for whoever's owning it and they got rid of property taxes. Imagine what's going to happen to our condo market if that if that actually takes place.
Yeah,
I'm going to
that
stop
that
sharing here so we can go back to
that topic in general, I know is it's
that topic.
definitely spreading. At the more and more DeSantis discusses it and throws it out there and talks about it. I mean, it's kind of crazy for me. I don't want to get into that because I think it's a huge thought. It's not even really there yet. It's not even out there. I mean, I do anticipate it being on the ballot in some way. Um, Definitely pushing for it. I just personally I can't imagine that happening.
I don't know that it will,
But
but
I don't think
it's
that's not to say there won't be like changes in some capacity for like homestead properties and maybe other incentives or other things that come out of it. But I think saying, hey, we're going to cut property taxes, as simple as
it's a
that for
grandiose idea.
homestead.
It's a grandiose idea, but I've seen crazier things happen this year.
It's
So
true. I mean, I don't want
So
to say it's
anything's
not
possible.
possible.
Anything's possible, but it's an interesting market, and I do think it's there's a sign of relief. I think we have a sigh of relief this year for us, and my heart goes out right now, and I have to say this to Jamaica and
Yeah.
what they're experiencing and the aftermath that they have to face. You know, as a hurricane targeted state, we can relate to that sentiment of what do we do on the other side of that when it's not in the news anymore and the real work has to happen of
Yeah.
rebuilding. And we weren't so far from that last year on our barrier islands where we had to rebuild. And so I know this year we all kind of are breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief that we weren't in so far. I mean, I think we have just a little bit left of hurricanes.
Yeah.
I think it's impacted, it's increased buyer confidence in our area to say that this is not like, that wasn't the new norm for these big storms are happening, but it's not going to be mean that we're going to get hit every single time with them.
Correct.
And I think that that's important to see and to feel on our side a little bit of an exhale that like we made it through a hurricane season on a positive note, and I think we're going to start to see that take place in season, you know.
I was in a networking group Monday, and somebody in the group mentioned that they had a conversation with another broker down in Miami. I guess he was down there during the Hurricane Andrew storm coming through, knocking everything out. And it was basically a memo or something like that. And they said that following whatever year after kind of the initial storm hitting, it was like 12 months later, like from that point forward was like just growth. And I don't know if that happens. That would be fantastic for the area. I do think everyone's kind of been waiting and waiting, are we going to have another storm? Is it going to be a consistent thing? Obviously, I think the projections were that it was going to be a very busy season, storm-wise, which again, knock on wood, we've been extremely lucky. I think overall, like the Gulf Coast and the Panhandle, I can't think of anything crazy happening this season at this point that's really been a fear, I guess.
And I think that impacted us last year. So I think last year's season was,
Mhm,
we were in recovery mode. I mean,
for
I know
sure.
that it was the week before Christmas, before the trees got removed from my lot, that had the tree debris that was piled up. It was piled up taller than me. And it
Yeah,
took months for that to happen. And I think that had an impact, especially on our barrier islands, which is a large driving force of our tourism track and our
yeah,
visitors, because anything that was, affected by the storms was in a rebuild mode. It took a while, it took a while to rebuild those structures to to make sure everything was stabilized. And I think that affected last year. So I'm really optimistic about this year's season because we're not in that recovery mode. And I think we'll see a lot more people coming back that maybe missed out last year or stayed away last year. I think it's exciting to see what happens between November 1st is like the trickle in,
yeah.
right? So
Well, think about, on that same note, like think about all the properties that were affected on the islands and, whether they got back into shape before rental season was here and everyone that had to cancel their bookings for those weeks that they were supposed to come down or months or whatever it was. And, again, some of those being seasonal, they've been coming for 10 years and they come into town and maybe that was the year they were planning to buy something and actually finding something down here. They didn't end up coming and maybe they stalled their search. There's a lot of it definitely affected season. And I think because like you said, the trees and debris and some of the stuff that took a long time to get cleaned up around the area, it was almost just like a reminder for months that
yeah.
it like occurred. And it did put everything kind of in a, it just wasn't the typical season that we were used to seeing. And I do think that changes this coming, January, February, March. So it'll be interesting. It'll be good to see everyone again. I'm not gonna be happy about the traffic, but it is what it is. Um,
I already have buyers who have let me know that they are coming and they're going to be looking. So,
that's
um,
good.
and I just closed last week with a buyer, 5 years. He had been on the fence after COVID and prices went up and then they dipped and there was a lot that went on around that. But he just finally, created his reality of having a second home in Florida. And
Yeah.
I think we're going to see more of that. So the question is lurking out there. Are we at the bottom, Derek? What do you think?
On record.
On record.
I don't, in what regard, I guess. I mean, bottom in terms of pricing, bottom in
Bottom in
terms of
terms of
like,
pricing, sure. Let's talk about it. What
I
do you
mean, I don't
think?
think, barring anything, catastrophic happening economy wise, like this, I feel like we're in a world where a tweet or a whatever you call them now can change markets immediately. Like it's so volatile in that regard. I do think, I don't know if are we at the bottom like on the charts? Are we going to see prices only go up from here? I mean, I can't say that. Maybe we're close to the bottom. I don't think we're going to see drastic drops. Again, the charts that I showed earlier for single family homes was like a $20,000 difference. It's not
Right.
huge. The thing I like to refer back to is prior to COVID, for years, our like median sale price was like 300,000. It was in that ballpark. And it jumped obviously during COVID, but we haven't gone back to 300. It's not like we've
Yeah.
lost all of the gains that people have made over the COVID years. Um, Do I anticipate that happening? No. So, I mean, I do
No,
think there's
I don't think so
the
either.
reminder of there's a lot of people out there that, sellers, if you bought prior to COVID, you're sitting on a lot of equity. And it's the decision at that point is, do you have plans to do something else with that? Do you want to upgrade? Do you want to cash out and downsize? Are you retiring? Whatever your goals and plans are, I think are something that people should kind of consider, knowing that you have maybe a couple $100,000 of equity that you probably wouldn't have at this point had COVID not
And
happened.
and I think that the perspective for sellers also needs to be that keep that gain in perspective because
Sure.
just because you missed out on maybe the opportunity in the in COVID inflation that we had here and it really was COVID related, just because you didn't take full effect of that
Hmm.
opportunity to sell at the absolute peak does not mean that you've lost if you're still making a big equity because you bought
No
like
doubt.
COVID. So, I mean, it may have lessened the gains you could have gotten, but that's just life, like you can't always predict when the peak and when the bottom's going to be.
Exactly.
We don't really have those crystal balls, right? So what we can do is make, the best decision that we can for today. And if you have equity in your property and you want to sell, it's a great time to still capitalize on that. If you're waiting for the next COVID peak, I'm not sure when that's going to happen.
I
Um,
mean, I mean, knowing it was right around 300 prior to COVID and looking at it now at 450, single family homes, I mean, that's 50%.
I
Like
mean,
that's a massive gain. You average it over the last 5 years, it's 10% a year. That's a crazy number. Actually, it's probably not 10 with your compounding or whatever, but nonetheless, 50% over the last 5 years is a massive amount of money. Um, Not saying your particular property necessarily went up that much, but
right,
all things considered, that's a lot. Yes, it could have been
could have been better.
65, or 70% difference. But again, 50 is better than 12, 15%, whatever. If let's say we went up 3% every year or whatever, the last 5 years. So, I mean, again, keeping it in perspective, depends on the goals, what you want to do as a seller. Maybe you don't want to move. Maybe you're fine. Maybe you, leverage the equity elsewhere, whatever you want to do. I just think it's,
And the
you
same
know,
conversation can be had with buyers who are waiting for like the absolute bottom, right?
can't time it. No
Yeah,
one
you
knows.
can't time it. Nobody does know. Could we go down or could we go up? The big indicator of when we've reached bottom is when we're on the other side of it and we said, up there was the bottom, we just passed it. So,
Yeah, we have
um,
we're a couple months past, and we say,
right.
hey, look, we were here. Now we've three
Right.
months have gone up,
So it that could also equate to a missed opportunity for the buyers that are holding out and saying, I'm going to wait just a little bit longer. You're welcome to. It could go down, but we could just as easily. The signs are showing that our inventory is dropping. We're stabilizing in prices. We might be bottoming out here. We're not. We don't have crystal balls, Derek, and I don't. But who knows, what happens going forward. And I'm curious to see what happens post Fed drop today and between now and the end of the year. So
we're
do you have
we're just for numbers, just to keep it in perspective for the future. Whenever someone watches this, I mean, as of Wednesday, October 30th, no, 29th, according to Mortgage News Daily, which is kind of what I look at for the 30-year, they track this daily. Um, we're at 6.13% average as of yesterday. So we didn't, at where that goes from here, but the last 5 days, it's been right around that 6.17, 1.8, 1.9. It dropped to 1.3 yesterday. So, it's low sixes. I think it's very possible, depending on your loan program. Obviously, FHA tends to be a little lower, at VA is a little lower, and then obviously everything else considered for conventional. It's much better than I think the peak of like 8%. So again, you know, that rate has come down from 8% where it peaked out to six, low sixes. I mean, again, great for a buyer.
Yeah.
So
And it's interesting, and like we talked about at the very beginning, and maybe we can wrap this up because I have no idea doing it this way how long we've been recording. But the Fed rate controls how the big banks and everything borrow money, right? So that's the rate at which they borrow money from. Whether or
yep.
not they trickle down their savings to the buyers or sellers, that's why we don't see, that's why there's sometimes a gap between what happens, and sometimes the rates tick up and sometimes they don't. But generally speaking, if it's costing them less to borrow money, it will cost us less to borrow money from them, right? So generally speaking, we'd like to see that trend. But it'll be interesting dynamics over the next couple of months to see how that plays out. And I'm sure we'll have a better update next month. Any final words, Derek?
No, I think any questions, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help answer questions, have a longer, more in-depth conversation specifically about your community or your home in particular. We're here to help and you know, if
Show
that's
you
just
the
a
boring
conversation,
graphs and stats.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can go into
I mean,
real specific detail if we really need to.
that's why I like you, Derek, because you're like just as big of a nerd as I am, and you're pulling up graphs, and I'm pulling up graphs, and we're uh,
Numbers don't lie.
the numbers don't lie. This is true, and that's usually like what I like to do is really, it's not my opinion that matters.
Right.
It's what are the numbers telling us? And
Yep.
if I can prove it in the numbers, then I've got a good case. All right, well, then I guess we should maybe sign off until next time. This was
Love
cool.
it.
So let us know what you think of us doing it via Zoom, and if you enjoyed this format versus the other way. I definitely like our scenery better.
Yeah, no, I mean, what's really behind me is not as pretty. It's
Same,
our
same.
catch-all room in our house, but it works for now, and you
And
you would have never known.
nice unintentional coordination there, Derek. I
That's
appreciate
it.
it.
That's
So
it.
I'm glad to be on the same page with you. So excited to see how the next couple of months go this year as we get into season, and I'm sure we'll have more to say.
And have a happy Halloween.
Have a happy Halloween, and we'll see you maybe hopefully we'll get one out before Thanksgiving, hopefully.
I think yeah, maybe
If
close.
not, we hope you have a nice Thanksgiving too. And
Absolutely.
take November. I know I have a coaching company. With my coaching company, the month of November is going to be gratitude. And that's my theme. So take the month of no, and I know as a company, we've embraced
Yep.
gratitude. So you might be hearing from me to hop on our daily gratitude train there. Take some time in November to be grateful for all that is, all that you have, and all that you have planned for the future.
I love it.
All right, guys.
Awesome. Have a good day. Thank you.
Bye.